9 years ago, my own mother stood in our kitchen and told me I would never amount to anything without a medical degree behind my name. 9 years later, I walked into my sister's wedding as a stranger to my own family, and by the end of that night, the same woman who threw me out was the one shaking, she said. I didn't know that was you. If you've ever been told you weren't enough by the people who were supposed to love you the most, stay with me. Because this story isn't about revenge. It's about what happens when you stop waiting for people to see your worth and start building a life so solid. Their opinion simply stops mattering. I grew up in a house where stethoscopes hung on coat racks like scarves, and dinner conversations revolved around surgeries, not report cards. My father was a cardiothorax surgeon. My mother, an OBGYN with her own private practice. My older sister, Camille, was already accepted into a 7-year accelerated medical program by the time she was 17. And me? I was the daughter who fainted at the sight of blood during a family hospital tour when I was 12. The one who cried during dissection labs in biology class. The one who, at every holiday dinner, was gently reminded that not everyone is cut out for this family's legacy. I didn't hate medicine. I just didn't want to become a surgeon to please people who had already decided who I was before I even knew myself. What I loved quietly, secretly, almost like something shameful, was numbers, systems, the way a broken process could be studied, rebuilt, and made to run better. While Camille studied anatomy textbooks, I was teaching myself coding from library computers. Building spreadsheets that tracked hospital wait times just because I found it fascinating. My family didn't see passion. They saw failure. The night of my high school graduation should have been one of the proudest nights of my life. I graduated third in my class. I had a partial scholarship to study health administration and data systems at a state university. I remember running into the house that evening, diploma still in hand, expecting, maybe naively, some kind of pride from my parents. Instead, I found my mother sitting at the dining table with my acceptance letter already open in her hands. She hadn't asked. She'd simply read my private mail, health administration. She said, like the words tasted bitter. Not pre-med, not nursing, some office job studying spreadsheets. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. We didn't raise you to manage other people's success. Aylana, we raised you to be one of us. I tried to explain. I told them this field was growing, that hospitals needed people who understood both healthcare and technology, that I could build something meaningful. My mother just shook her head slowly, like I was a diagnosis she couldn't accept. You've embarrassed this family enough, she said. Pack a bag. If you're not going to carry our name with pride, don't carry it at all. I was 18. I remember standing in the doorway of the only home I'd ever known, holding a suitcase I'd packed with shaking hands, while my sister Camille stood behind our parents, arms crossed, saying nothing. Not a word in my defense. Just silence, the kind of silence that hurts louder than any insult. That night, I slept in my car in a college parking lot because the dorms hadn't opened yet. I remember crying so hard I couldn't breathe, whispering to myself in the dark, maybe they're right. Maybe I really am the failure of this family. But somewhere between that breakdown and sunrise, something in me shifted. I made a decision that would define the next 9 years of my life. I was done trying to earn love from people who had already decided I didn't deserve it. I was going to build a life so meaningful that I would never again need anyone's permission to feel proud of myself. I worked 3 jobs through college. Front desk at an urgent care clinic. Weekend shifts at a call center. Tutoring high schoolers in math. I studied health systems design until 2 in the morning, more nights than I can count. I learned to build software that could track patient flow, reduce wait times, predict staffing shortages before they happened. After graduation, I got hired by a small startup nobody had heard of. One trying to build smarter data systems for rural and underfunded hospitals. The kind of hospitals nobody in my family would have ever set foot in, let alone worked for. I threw myself into that job like it was oxygen. I didn't call home. My family didn't call me either. Not on my birthday. Not at Christmas. 9 years of silence, broken only by the occasional distant update I'd hear through a cousin. Camille got engaged. Camille got into her residency. Camille was doing exactly what a daughter should do. Meanwhile, the startup I poured myself into grew. We built systems that hospitals across 17 states now rely on to save lives through smarter, faster care. I became director of operations, then eventually a partner in the company. We weren't famous. We weren't flashy. But quietly, in hospital back offices most patients never see, we were changing how emergency care worked for thousands of people. I never once told my family. Not because I was hiding out of shame, but because I had stopped needing them to know. Then, 9 years after that night in the doorway, an invitation arrived at my apartment. Cream-coloured envelope, gold lettering. Camille's wedding. I almost threw it away. But something in me, maybe healing, maybe curiosity, maybe the part of me that still loved my sister despite everything, made me open it. There was no personal note inside, just a formal invitation, like I was a distant relative rather than her only sibling. I think, deep down, I wanted to walk back into that world just once, not for them, but for myself. To prove to the 18-year-old girl crying in that parking lot that she survived, that she built something, that she was never the failure they said she was. I arrived at the wedding venue in a simple navy dress, no entourage, no announcement. I found a seat near the back, wanting to observe more than be seen. But word travels fast in small gatherings, and it wasn't long before my mother spotted me near the reception hall. She walked over, confusion turning quickly into contempt. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice low but sharp enough to cut. "This is a doctor's wedding, Aylana. Half these guests are chiefs of surgery, hospital board members. You'll embarrass us." Camille appeared beside her, radiant in her gown, but her eyes were cold. "Mom's right. I didn't even put you on the list. You weren't supposed to come." I felt that old, familiar sting, the same one from 9 years ago. But this time, it didn't collapse me. I simply said, "I only came to see you get married, Camille." That's all. That's when her husband-to-be, Dr. Marcus Reyes, walked over, sensing tension. "Is everything okay here?" he asked. My mother quickly straightened, forcing a polite smile for him. "Just a small family matter, Marcus. Nothing to worry about." But Marcus's eyes lingered on me a second longer, narrowing slightly, like he recognized something. "Wait," he said slowly. Aylana Whitfield, from Meridian Health Systems." My mother blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "She's my daughter who dropped out of medicine to do paperwork." Marcus let out a stunned laugh, shaking his head. "Paperwork?" "Mrs. Whitfield, the hospital system I work for adopted Meridian's emergency triage software 2 years ago. It cut our wait times by almost 40%. Aylana co-built and helped scale that system across 17 states. I sat in a conference with her last year. She's one of the most respected names in healthcare operations on the East Coast." The reception hall seemed to go quiet around us. My mother's face shifted through disbelief, embarrassment, and something that almost looked like shame. Camille's mouth opened slightly, no words coming out. I looked at my mother, calm, steady, no anger left in my voice, because I had already healed long before that moment. "I didn't come here tonight to prove anything to you," I said gently. "I already know who I am. I just wanted to see my sister get married." My mother reached for my hand for the first time in 9 years, her voice breaking. "Aylana, I didn't know. I'm sorry." I squeezed her hand once, softly. "I know, Mom, but I didn't build my life to be seen by you. I built it to survive without needing to be." I stayed only a little while longer that night, long enough to hug my sister, long enough to wish her a genuine happy life. Then I left quietly, the way I'd come, not as someone seeking approval, but as someone who had already found peace. Here's what that night taught me, and what I hope it teaches you too. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. But their inability to see your worth was never a reflection of your value. It was a reflection of their limitations. You don't need anyone's permission to become who you're meant to be. Healing isn't about proving people wrong. It's about becoming so whole, so at peace, that their opinions simply can't reach you anymore. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever felt unseen by the people who should have loved you unconditionally, know this: your story isn't over. Sometimes the family you were born into isn't the family who gets to witness your becoming. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real, emotional stories about family, healing, and quiet strength, because your comeback story might be closer than you think.